Okay, I'm going to move on to show you how to import a poem. There are two different ways. The easiest way is to have the poem saved on your computer, either on a jump drive or on a folder in on your computer. To particularly make sure it's a Word document, and you can simply find that Word document. So I clicked on Finder, and I can go to, in this case, I have my poems in some folders here. So I have my different poems, so I can choose a poem that I want to bring on to my document. And let us bring in this one. Okay, it's called Man's Guitar, so I just want to make sure it's the right poem. And all I simply need to do is drag it over. Notice how I've got the Finder window open on one side, but I've still got the poetry document in the background. I simply drag it over and set it where I want to go. And then I can minimize that window. I click back on the page to get my toolbar back, and now I can move around. First thing you'll notice is the black arrow on the left-hand toolbar. You want that selected to be able to move your poem around. So I click on this, and you'll notice that there is that rectangular text box. If I hold down my left click, I can move the poem wherever I want. The front page is going to be my cover, so I actually want to move this to another page. Now I could simply hold down my left click and scroll down, but an easier way to do that would be to hit Command X to cut the poem and then scroll down to where I'd like it. So I'm going to put it on page 2. So I click on page 2. Again, I can verify that I'm on that page over on the right hand pages part, and then I click Command V to paste the poem. I can slide the poem where I want it. Now one thing about this layout is that you can see where the inside binding is. So this is the inside binding of the booklet. This purple line here is the bleed line. So anything outside of the bleed line will be printed, it has potentially printed, potentially be cut off when it is printed. So to avoid that, you want to make sure that your poem is within the bleed line. You can again zoom in to make sure that you have it where you want it. When you are working with the opposite side of the page, so if I were to move the poem over to the opposite side of the page, I've found that if I put the poem right up against the bleed line when it is on this side part of the binding, that's not quite enough room. So I actually like to move another 4 squares, and I can zoom in to make sure that I'm really moving 4 squares. So I can hold down my left click and I can move the poem like that, and I like to do that for the large movements, but for more finer movements I can again hold down the arrow keys on my keypad to move the poem around. So I can move it exactly into place where I want it. Again, I like to make sure that I've got equal distance from the side and the top, so I'll usually go about 4 down. I want to make sure that I have that same spacing for every single poem throughout the booklet so that it looks nice and professional. Another thing that you might see if you have a large poem is a red plus sign in the corner. This indicates that there is more poem than is available to be displayed in this text box. So if that is the case, then I want to make sure that I make the text box larger. If I double click inside the text box, I can then change the font size. So right now we can see up here I'm at Times New Roman 12-point font. That's fairly large font. I like to use 11, so I'm going to copy it, or I'm going to highlight all the text, and I'm going to go up here and I'm going to move it down to 11-point font. If I wanted to make it italicized, I would simply click down here, click italic, or if I want to make it bold or bold and italic, that's what I would do. If I wanted to be underlined, on the other hand, I would click on that tool and that would underline it. Okay, so I've got the text how I like it, I've got the proper spacing,